it's time to set our model on fire. Well, actually, we're going to be adding the fire in a couple more steps. For now, we're going to turn our model into something that resembles more like lava. Well, you'll see. It's kind of cool. Let's just focus on the body layer for now. So I'm going to turn off the leg, turn off the arm, and we're now going to obliterate a lot of the detail in here. We're going to basically blow away the fact that she's wearing a leotard, the fact that there's a little bit of visible tutu in the front. In fact, we want to essentially fill her completely with black, except for the face, which we want to tint kind of red. So we'll start with that. And for this little bit, we're not going to use layer effects. We're going to use adjustment layers because we need to use a mask to preserve her face. Let's add an adjustment layer for a solid color. And we'll just choose a nice bright red. And, well, what's happened? She's gone. Well, of course, we've just created an entire solid layer. We actually need to use the transparency of the body layer, and we do that by holding down the Option key on the Mac, the Alt key on Windows, and clicking on the line that separates these two layers, which basically just applies this color fill to the visible pixels of the layer below it, as if the layer below is a track matte. We don't want it to be blown out quite this much. We're sort of looking like the cutout on the back of an 18-wheeler right now, which isn't exactly our goal. So let's go up to our layer modes and choose something like, I don't know, Tricolor Burn. That's pretty good. And that gives us a nice sort of Alice Cooper black eyes look to our layer that I like a lot. We can actually fine-tune the color of red a little bit, bring it down so that this side of the face goes almost completely into shadow. I like it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Click OK. And now we basically want to fill everything but the face with black. So we've already ended up blackening a lot of our layer with the trick that we just did. But there's little bits and pieces of bright colors poking through. And of course, there's this whole section that needs to be darkened up. So once again, let's add an adjustment layer. But before we do, I'm going to go up here, grab my elliptical marquee tool, just drag a circle around her face. Now, we didn't start exactly where we needed to, so let me add the space bar while holding the mouse key down, which lets me reposition the circle. And then when I release the space bar, I can go back to redrawing it again. Great little shortcut. Now, we've selected the face, but in fact, I want to select everything but the face. So you can see what's going on here. I'll hit Command-0, that would be Control-0 on Windows, to go back to full screen. Let's spread this out a little bit. And now Command-Shift-I or Control-Shift-I on Windows inverts the selection. And that means basically we're selecting everything but the thing that we had selected. Very useful shortcut to get to know if you don't know it already. And once again, come back down, choose Solid Color from our adjustment layer pop-up, which fills our layer with black by default. That's exactly the right color this time as it happens, so we're going to click OK. You'll notice, though, that because we had pre-selected our background but not our model's face, Photoshop automatically generated a mask with a little black blob where the face is and white pixels everywhere else, and the end result is exactly what we were hoping for. Now, as before, we want to preserve the underlying transparency of the pixels, so we're going to connect these layers together as before. Hold down the Option key on Mac, Alt on Windows, and click on the line to fill only the silhouette of the layer below. Now I want to modify the mask just slightly. I know we've got a little bit of spill on the hair here, and I want to fix that. So let's come over and click on the mask layer to make sure that we're actually going to be painting on the mask layer. I want to make sure that we're painting with white because we actually want to add to the mask. Black would subtract from the mask. And I'll hit the B key to grab our paintbrush, and we're just going to paint. And because the mask is selected, we're actually not destroying any pixels here in our foreground. We're painting on the mask, and it's allowing us to get rid of that hair. Okay, great. Awesome. There we are. Perfect. We have filled our body layer with black except for the face. And now you can already see that our layers palette is starting to fill up. I know I'm not going to need to tweak what we've done much, but I also know I don't want to necessarily make all of these adjustments permanent. So what I'm going to do with the black color fill 2 layer selected, hold down the Shift key and click on the body layer to select all 3 of these layers. Then I'm going to right-click on any of the text and choose Convert to Smart Object. Now, you're probably familiar with smart objects as a way of taking a layer, changing it to a smart object so that you can scale it down and then scale it back up again without losing any resolution, which is great, or applying non-destructive filters. But you might not know that you can use smart objects to group objects together. And when we do this, you'll see we now have a single layer with the smart object icon that you're probably familiar with by now, but it's just a single layer in this Photoshop document. However, all of the settings that we've just applied are still available to us in a nested document that's now embedded inside this Photoshop document. And to get to it, just double-click on the icon. You'll get this message saying, after editing the contents, choose File Save to commit the changes. Those changes will be reflected on returning to ballerina.jpg. That's exactly right. It's just telling you, basically, go make some changes and save it, come back, and you'll see the end results. So if we click OK, we now see what looks like another document. But it's a PSB file, not a PSD file. And if you look over here, it's comprised of the layers that we grouped together. So any changes that we made here, let's say we wanted to change the color to, green, click OK and save, jump back to our ballerina layer, and the results are immediately updated. Now we don't want her to have a green face, so let's go back and undo that change. Once again, drag it down to red, click OK, save, close this, and we're back in our simplified document. Okay, now the last thing I want to do to this layer before we move on to the arm and the leg is I want to apply a layer effect to it. And the layer effect I want to apply is Inner Glow. I'm going to choose Inner Glow and move our controls to the side so we can see the results. And what I'm going to do here is choose a much more saturated red, something like this. It is a live effect, so we can always go back and change this. And I'm going to adjust the size up as well. Now I want the size up high enough that it gives us a really nice stroke around everything, and see how it's really pulling the hair out as well. But I don't want to fill in so much that we lose all detail in the arms and especially the hands. I don't mind if the fingers fill in. In fact, that's a good effect. But I want to adjust this size up to probably about 35 pixels or so. And that gives us still a little bit of definition in the thinner portions of our layer, but still gives us a nice glow around our object. I'll click OK. And now, because we want to make sure that we match this color to the other layers exactly, I'm going to copy this layer effect. Come down, copy layer style. I'll turn on my leg, and I'm going to paste. Layer style, and that gives us a nice red glow around our leg. But there's a couple problems here now. The first one is easy to solve, and that's I can still see the tutu. But we don't need to do what we did with the other layer in this case, because there's no part of the content we're trying to mask off. We can handle the black fill on this layer with a layer effect. If I just double-click Effects, I'll come down to Color Overlay, which by default is red. Select it so we can see the controls. Let's change that color to black. Let's do a saturated black. And that's it. We have now filled the layer with black and given it a nice inner glow. Now, because that leg is a little closer to us than the back leg, and this is just my own kind of eyeball telling me this, I want to increase the size very slightly of the foreground leg, just to give us a little wider glow on the element that's closer to us than the one that's behind us. So let's set that to about 45, in my case 46, and click OK. Now, once again, I'm going to copy the layer style because we've added something to it. It has both the color overlay and the inner glow. So let's save ourselves a little extra work. Copy the layer style again, turn on our arm layer, and paste the layer style. Now, this has too wide of a glow. You can see we're filling in the hands a little bit, so we'll go back and we're going to tweak the results just slightly, take our size back down again, maybe to around 40, or maybe even a little bit less, like the original, about 35. Yep, that looks good. Click OK. All right, now we have one last problem here, and that is our character looks a little bit like a mannequin. We've gone out of our way to fill in her body with this treatment in an effort to make it not look like she has an outfit on, but the way that her arm and her legs attach to her body, it now looks like she's got a bathing suit on or something, or is a mannequin, and that's not the look that we're after. We really want this to look like a single smooth effect, even on these elements that overlap each other. So the way that we would do this is we want to mask out the portions of the leg here, where you see the joint, and the arm where it joins the body. Piece of cake, right? Well, if we just add a mask layer, I'll show you what the problem is. If we try to mask this out, we'll get our brush, give ourselves a bigger brush here. Let me zoom in closer so we can see what we're doing. If I choose black with my X key and start painting to erase this seam, you'll see that it's kind of having an effect that we like, but everywhere I paint, the inner glow follows. Basically, the inner glow is being applied after the mask. So no matter how far down I paint this mask, I'm still going to have a seam. It's not going to look the same as it did before, but it's still a seam, and I don't want a seam there. So basically, I need to have the masking occur after the glow occurs. But I don't want to commit this glow to this layer because I might want to go back at some point, say, and fine-tune the color or something. So I want to keep these effects live, but I need the mask to occur after the layer. And once again, the way to do that is by converting the layers into smart objects. Let me delete this layer mask by just dragging it to the trash can. Delete, don't apply. And now, before we apply a mask to our arm layer, right-click on the text, choose Convert to Smart Object. Now we add a layer mask. When we come back and paint on this mask, you'll see that because the calculation of the glow is happening in an embedded smart object, it's happening first before it gets into the main composition, and we're free to mask off the glow, yet still have a live glow effect, because all we have to do is come back and double-click on this icon, as I showed you a second ago, and go in and re-edit that object. So an incredibly flexible way to work to preserve all of these live effects, but still allow you to control the order in which things render inside Photoshop. Once again, we'll convert to a smart object, we'll apply a layer mask, and let's get rid of the leotard line. I don't mind if there's a little crease here, but I don't want that there. So let's see what that gives us. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. That's pretty much exactly what I want. I'll get rid of this line. Once again, be creative, be artistic. It is an artistic process. If you mess up the mask, remember you can always hit the X key and unpaint some of the masking that you did. And now we're ready to add some texture to our model. It's not enough that she's just sort of a glowing mannequin at this point. We actually want to add a kind of a broken up lava crackly texture. And the actual creation of the texture takes us out of this file for a moment and into a new one.